we did get some really great advice early on in business to get a line of credit when you don't need it.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan, speaker, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, and this podcast, we talk all things money and business. Today's episode is sponsored by Drive Planning, bringing private investments from the wealthy to you, creating tax burdens for their clients. Make more, keep more, live more. Today's episode, I get to interview Stephanie Carton with Entrepreneurista, and she's going to give you her best advice she learned early on about business credit. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to chat.
Yes, you have a pretty extensive career in your young age, but I would love for you to start off with your journey and kind of how you got to running the business that you are today.
Absolutely. So, my business partner, Courtney, and I founded our first business, Social Fly, back actually in 2011 on the side of our full time job. So, we were both actually working in the corporate world. We were taking on clients on the side, working nights and weekends for about 10 months until we said to each other, all right, this is going to be an actual business. We have to go all in and do it or not do it at all. It was too hard to run it as a side hustle and build it into something bigger. So we decided to actually quit our corporate jobs on the same day. So it was May 4th of 2012, and we never looked back and grew and scaled our agency business really organically. We actually never raised any capital for Social Fly. We bootstrapped the business, and we were able to grow quickly by really practicing what we preach with our own marketing strategies for our agency business. So we were very quickly number one on Google for social media agency and influencer agency in New York City. And we started winning awards for our work. So what started to happen was, because of the quick growth and success of Social Fly, so many other women founders and women who were thinking about starting businesses started reaching out to us, wanting to go out to coffee and pick our brain and just wanting to hear how we did it. And what you're going to learn about myself and Courtney is we're the type of people that like to help absolutely everyone. But what we realized very quickly is that it was physically impossible to go out to coffee all day long and actually run a business, our agency. So we started thinking, Angela, we're like, how can we help as many women founders as possible, but do it at scale? So that was our aha moment. Like, oh, why don't we start a podcast and we can share all of these incredible stories of women like yourself that are building businesses and have so much insight and advice to share. So Entrepreneurista actually started as our podcast in 2018, and then we ended up evolving it into a full media company and now our membership community, which is called the Entrepreneurista League, where we have now close to 2,000 members, and everyone is networking and connecting and doing business together. And we essentially created the community and the platform that we wish we had when we started our first business, Social Fly, over a decade ago now. So that is the, I don't know, 3-minute, was that 3 minutes, Angela? 3-minute version of the past 10 plus years.
Yeah, I love that because, that's great advice too. Because I think a lot of times when people are thinking about starting a business, they just want to quit their job and go. And, not every business is meant to be launched. And you guys took the time to build it to make sure there was a marketplace that wanted that business before you said goodbye to your job.
Yes, that's exactly what we did. And once we had some money coming in and some clients, we're like, okay, we can take this risk. And it's so funny because, Courtney and I have completely opposite skill sets. We always have divided and conquered in business. And in business, Courtney has always been much more like risk averse. And I've always just been like, it's going to work. We'll jump in and figure it out. So in the early days, Courtney was calculating like, okay, if I don't make this much money by this date, if it doesn't work, we can always go back and get a job. And I'm like, it's going to work. We're going to make it happen. We're going to do it. But she was always calculating. And I was like, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make it happen. So it's good to have a balance.
Yeah, a great partnership too. I'm more
Yes.
like Courtney. Like I'm very risk adverse. And so until it happens, I don't know that it will. And it sounds
Yeah.
like you're like, it's going to happen. And it just kind of
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So launching your podcast, what are some things maybe early on that you learned that you wish you would have known before you went down the podcast, journey?
You know, a lot of the learning lessons are really just like how positive the experience has been building our podcasting community. What we didn't know when we first launched the podcast was how powerful the podcast medium truly is. Like we, wanted to test it out and we thought that it would be a great platform to share these stories, but what we didn't realize was like how massive it could actually be and the impact that it could have. And really our podcast became the catalyst for building entrepreneurs to actually as a business because the need was really there. It just started, like I said, as a side content project. And then there was this demand and need for what we have now created. So there is such massive potential with podcasts. And depending on what your goal is for your business and why you're starting a podcast, there's all different reasons to potentially launch one. So for us, it really was this. We wanted to share all of this awesome content and it ended up evolving into something else. But for someone else, there's a lot of really great business development strategies for starting a podcast. And you might start a podcast because you want to be able to connect and network with other people one to one intimately to have conversations together like this and build awesome relationships. Because, Angela, I bet we're now going to become fast friends and do lots of stuff together after spending this intimate 30 minutes together. And for business owners, that can be really impactful. And it doesn't have to necessarily be about how am I going to get millions of downloads. It can be, can I use a podcast as a really great relationship building and a really great medium to, create content?
Yeah, and you're right. The relationship building is incredible. I've learned so much from having people on my show. So I know if I'm learning something, the audience is as well. And then when people come to me and say, "Hey, who do you know that does
Mhm.
this?" I already have a whole list of incredible women that I've had interviewed. And then I can just send them my referrals because I've had this time to get to know them. So, yeah, I definitely love that too. So, podcasting has changed a little bit over the years since you've launched. I'm a little bit newer to the podcast world. What are some things that you've kind of embraced in the podcast world that has evolved and changed for you?
I would say, in terms of, you know, content creation with podcasts, now there's so much opportunity to just get so much more reach and use out of the content you're creating from your podcast on social, like especially with Instagram Reels and YouTube and LinkedIn. There's a way to get that really great content that you're creating from your podcast out across over many other platforms. And while, this of course was the case 5 years ago, obviously social media existed 5 years ago when we started the podcast, just the change in the like how people view this type of content. Like people are used to seeing this type of content on social and they like love it and they want this content and that can be the real driver um to get people over to start listening to your podcast. The other thing I would say is that over the past couple of years, podcasting has become huge, right? And it's a lot easier to start a podcast with all the new tools that are out there than it was 5 years ago when we started Entreprenista. We worked with a whole production company. We were, in New York City recording all of our interviews live in person in a studio. It was a lot more expensive
Mm.
than what we've been able to do now. So ever since 2020, like right away we had to like pivot to start recording virtually and then we were like, wait a second, we can actually do this for a fraction of the cost. And there's so many other tools. So there's a lot more opportunity now to just decide to start a podcast and have all like a lot of new resources that weren't out there 5 years ago.
Yeah. Can you share any? Because I mean, the AI technology is just advancing so quickly, and I feel like
Yes.
I cannot keep up with the apps. Everyone is like this one, that one, this one.
Yes.
But I still like to ask, like, what's working for you when it comes to using technology to help the podcasting?
Yes. Okay. So some of the tools that we're using, we use Riverside to record our podcasts. We've tried several different platforms, and we ended up landing on Riverside. We actually really like that the audio records on separate tracks. So if someone has issues with their Wi-Fi, there really isn't a problem in the recording. So we really liked using that platform. We're now using Opus for editing videos and pulling the videos and then really all the social platforms. And then there's another AI tool that we're using as well. And I'm gonna have to pull the name for you, and I can get it for you later, and we could I can give it to you if you want to put in the show notes, but there is another AI tool that we're using that I can't remember the name of.
Yeah, no problem at all. I recently went to a networking event. Actually, there was quite a few in Miami recently about AI, and I feel like I'm the least techie person. So I have to write them down and then I go sign up for the free trial. I test them
Yep.
out,
I'm
see
actually
like what makes sense for me and what's easy to use too. So I'm sure you can also talk about that from the marketing agency perspective. There's probably a lot of tools that is helping you with that side of your business as well.
absolutely. And you know what? I just pulled up the link here. I have the name. It's called Perplexity.
Hmm, I haven't heard
So
that one.
that is the app or the AI tool. And
Awesome.
and then from a marketing perspective, we've been testing lots of AI tools. Of course, ChatGPT. There's another AI tool that we love. It's called Claude. Have you heard of
Hmm,
Claude?
I have not.
So Claude we have found is like really great for like social and social media captions. What I would say though, or what I do say about AI is when you're using it for copy or for content, like it's a great first draft. Like you're
Mhm.
not taking that content and like copying and pasting that and using it on social. It's your first draft to like come up with some other ideas, but you absolutely need to edit it. Like people can tell if you're just grabbing the stuff from the AI tools.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Oftentimes I tell people you definitely need to have a freebie. Like if you're coming on as a guest, give something for free. It's a great way for you to capture, my audience when you're on the podcast. And sometimes I'll see people and you can totally tell their checklist is exactly copied from ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
So like make it a little bit personal, spend like 5 minutes at least reviewing it. And then, it just sounds better that way too.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah. So how do you help your clients today?
So, for Entreprenista, our membership community, we serve women founders and leaders that are really looking to connect, network, build relationships with each other. So, we have a community platform that everyone is extremely engaged in. We do weekly virtual learning as well as networking events for our community. We're now doing in person events too. We help all of our members get PR and get featured and really amplify their business. So, all of our members get a feature on entreprenista.com. We now launched a second podcast called Startups and Stilettos where we feature our members as well. And then we have all these discounts on business tools and solutions. So we help our community and members save a lot of money on all of the business tools that they're ultimately going to need as they're growing and scaling their business. And I personally, like you, like make lots of intros for our members of our community and connect everyone. And because I know everyone and in the community, and because Courtney and I have spent the past decade building this incredible network of incredible people that we know, we're easily able to just make some of the best connections to really help everyone grow their business, get clients, get featured, get the press, all the things. So that's how we serve our members and community.
Yeah, and so on this business that you're doing now, you talked about your first business
Yeah.
first, where you didn't need to raise any funds. Did you have to do any of that on this business?
So for Entreprenista, Courtney and I first funded the business ourselves. So we put our own money in to initially launch Entreprenista. And actually, I can't remember if I shared this yet, but we spun off Entreprenista as a completely separate business in 2020. So Courtney actually still runs our agency business, Socialfly, and I run everything and manage everything with Entreprenista. And that's how we've now been dividing and conquering over the past couple of years. And of course, we come together every day as needed, and we're business partners and do all the things together, but we each have our separate focuses. That way, that's how we were really able to build out everything with Entreprenista over the past few years, was because we realized one of us actually needed to focus on it. So
Mm.
we decided 2 years ago, we took on a small amount of angel investment in Entreprenista because we had some women in our community and in our network of friends who've known us forever that saw what we were building with Entreprenista and actually came to us and
Mm.
really wanted to invest in the business. And that's the best thing, right? To have people that truly believe in what you're building and want to be part of it and financially be part of it and the growth. There's definitely nothing better. So we do have a few angel investors in the business, and then Courtney and I also personally funded the business as well.
Yeah, and that's a great tip too, because even though you might not think that you need some funding, you never know what expertise they're bringing to the table.
Mhm.
And if they want to be part of your growth and then they buy into growing your company with you,
Yeah.
so at least have a conversation. You never know what's going to come about.
Absolutely. The other thing I do want to mention on the social fly side is we did get some really great advice early on in business to get a line of credit when you don't need it.
Mhm.
So we got access to a line of credit for Social Fly many years ago now when we didn't need it. And that way we always knew that if we ever did need it, we had access to this capital if there was ever a time that that something happened. So that was something that I love sharing with people because you're not going to be able you will likely not be able to qualify for a line of credit for your business when you actually need it. You probably wouldn't get approved. But if you get that line of credit when you can, that that is my best tip when it comes to that. And also build relationships with your business bankers because your
Mhm.
business bankers and building those personal relationships, they're going to be the ones to really help you as things happen. Like during the pandemic, when everyone, we were helping and mentoring people during the pandemic, but then we were also dealing with everything too and like figuring out things with the PPP loan and all sorts of things that were happening. And we were able to go to our business bankers and get help and advice. So building those relationships is definitely key.
Yeah, and I love that first piece of advice because in this market that we're in right now, commercial debt is a little bit harder to get for
Mhm.
that line of credit. So if you get it ahead of time, what I'm seeing right now is that those who have it in place, some of the banks are reducing it.
Mhm.
That's okay. At least you have something there
Yeah.
because then if you're applying for it right now, they're like, no, I don't want to take on that risk. So it's
Mhm.
much harder right now to get that line of credit. So that's
Yep.
an amazing piece of advice.
Yep.
Yeah. So I see you've got tons of books behind you. Anything you recommend right now, either that you've read recently or is just one of your favorites?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I have so many. Wait, I'm going to turn right now because so you guys can still hear me in the mic. So hold on. I'll tell you some of my favorites here that are back here. Okay, so there's a book by one of our mentors. Her name is Carrie Kirpin, and I'm happy to tell you the amazing Carrie Kirpin story. She has a book up here. It's called Work It. Awesome book. Highly, highly recommend. And then, I mean, all these books are amazing. Jessica Zweig, she's the founder of Simply Be Agency. She has a book all about personal branding, is amazing. I mean, so many of these. Marie Forleo has incredible
Mhm.
all these books behind me are good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll
Marie
do a
has
lot
a
this, yeah.
podcast too,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And
I love her.
we had her on our podcast, Entreprenista, gosh, back when we first started. I think it was probably the end of 2018 or beginning of 2019. We had her on the Entreprenista podcast, and it was so awesome to meet her. She's incredible.
So when is your book coming out?
So I'll tell you this. Courtney and I wrote a book that came out in 2015 called Like, Love, Follow, The Entreprenista's Guide to Using Social Media to Grow Your Business. And every year we've said we're going to update the book and put out a new edition. And we have not yet done that because we prioritize other things and focus on other things. But there probably is an Entreprenista book in the making in the next couple of years. I can't tell you exactly when, but
That's awesome. All right. So any final business money tips that you would love to give to the audience today?
yes. If you don't feel comfortable in your ability to manage your finances, personal finances, or business finances, there are people that specialize in it and are experts, and they're willing to teach you and they are willing to help you. And you have nothing to be afraid of by reaching out and asking for help and asking for advice and just starting the process of learning. And I can tell you firsthand, Courtney's always managed our books, finances, everything for our businesses. Like that is her expertise. That is not my expertise. I've always surrounded myself with other people that do have an expertise that can help because for me, it doesn't come naturally to me, but that's okay. But that doesn't mean that I have not been able to build successful businesses. Find the right people that can help you, that can teach you, that can give you that comfort. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about if personal finance or business finance isn't your thing, you can still build a business. Just surround yourself with other people who can help you. And actually, we just do you know Farnoosh Torabi?
I love
You know
her.
Farnoosh.
Yes. Her new
So
book too just came
yes,
out.
her
Uh-huh.
new book, I believe it should be. I think it's up here too. So we just had Farnoosh on our podcast as well. She's going to be speaking at our event that we're doing an Entreprenista event in May, our Founders Weekend Retreat. It's all about building wealth and wellness in your business and life. And Farnoosh is going to be speaking. And she just launched a community as well. And it's like, just bring everyone together, have conversations, listen to podcasts like yours where you can just learn from each other. And again, if it doesn't come naturally to you, it's okay. Like you can still be successful and, make a lot of money, build personal and business wealth. Just be around other people that can help.
Yeah. So where's the event going to be at?
So the event is going to be at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando from May 3rd to May 5th this
Mm.
year. And it's going to be amazing. We have tickets, entreprenista.com/founders weekend is where tickets are available. We have a few left.
Yeah. What an incredible website too. That's awesome. You got that snatched.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I so appreciate your time today. Oh, I have one final question. I almost
Sure.
forgot. Stephanie, if you could have a superpower or super talent, what would it be and why?
Hmm. Never thought about this before, Angela. A superpower or super talent. Um, I would say, hmm, this is a tough one.
Yeah. See, we talk about money and business and then just something fun at the end to
I
kind of see
know.
different side.
I would say to be able to see the future and what's going to happen. I don't really like surprises. I like to plan things. So to be able to see what's going to happen would be
Yeah.
my superpower.
Yeah. So you're not caught off guard and
Yes.
surprised sometimes. Awesome. Well, Stephanie, if our audience wants to get in touch with you, learn more about what you're doing or join your program, how do they reach you?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn personally at Steph Jill Carton. And then for Entreprenista, you can join the Entreprenista League at entreprenista.com/join and on Instagram at Entreprenistas with an S at the end.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Thank you so much for tuning into Empower Her Money podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast, and leave a review wherever you are tuning in.